I got a text message from my sister. And I can't kind of figure out. I'm like,
listen, your family has been interrupting our situation. Wait.
Time for you to prioritize, Monique. What the fuck?
well, you have to remember, I do have.
Yeah, what is it? 247 siblings?
Yeah. Doesn't stop.
That's awesome.
How is your mom, by the way?
Oh, I thank you for asking. She's feeling more and more herself, which is always a good thing. Oh, that's good. So, all right, so anyway, are you settled and ready to shoot the shat for a little bit?
Yep.
Want to roll?
This is the same sister that just had a termination. I'm like, you're insane.
Oh, that just sucks.
So,
we know nothing of insanity. All right?
Me?
We know nothing of insanity.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So.
I don't hear any background music.
That's what. That's what I'm trying to set up now. I was trying to play it on my phone, and it's like, you cannot play music while you're on a call. So I'm frantically grabbing the boombox.
Frantic is the operative word of the sentence.
Only because AI is insistent on being a party to this conspiratorial communication.
Oh. There we go.
All right, so
you sound like you're super underwater. Am I super far away?
Yep, it's probably
we're closer.
We'll get closer. Any better?
Yeah.
All right. So, I was very interested in when you sent me that text about the 95-year-old grandma with a...
Oh my God.
And the whole Moni Dime scenario.
Yes. A wonderful little church. It felt like, you know, an ancient family that was part of the revival legacy of, like, that HBO show, Carnival.
Right. Good reference.
It's the same feeling of Berg and his mother, which is what this family had as well. But theirs was pure and clean. It was Catholicism with all of the beautiful ritual and the altar and the curtain and, you know, the liturgy with the book that you go through, and the priest says this and the people say that, and, you know, very orchestrated in that way. But it was a New Age church that understood the Christ as the Aquarian crystalline revelation. So it was a masculine Christ that was a female priest leading the service with her mother. And it was a tiny little church. This is land, they have allowed huge marijuana grows on their land. The federal police showed up. Obviously not the police, but the feds showed up with helicopters and took all of it, and they ended up apologizing.
But it was they're sovereign.
They are sovereign, and they are, you know, 100% legal and in their rights and everything. So,
all right.
This woman,
okay.
She was adorable. I said, "What's your name?" And she whispers to me, "Mary." And I'm like, "Oh, Mother Mary." And she was like, "Ah!" She thought it was so funny. And then she's like, "What's your name?" And I said, "Monique." And she goes, "Money?"
Oh, no way.
I tried to clarify, and she didn't get it. And then she goes, she did this little tiny cackle of a laugh, and then she goes, "Well, your middle name should be Dime." So, and you know, it was they wore these breastplates that had like a gold cross with 3 pink roses and an all-seeing eye with a Masonic checkerboard floor.
Right, this is where I want to get back to. So 3 things. One, you said Berg was very present there. 2, the whole Masonic checkerboard setup of their emblemology or their sigil. And 3, you just happen to be cruising the backwoods of California and ran across them, or how that interaction even?
Somebody who I'm working with suggested that I go there and make contact. They do a sweat lodge, and you know they've had different green grows and stuff. So I was invited, and I was given a name. It's a friend. His name is Larry. He said to tell Elizabeth that that I was on my way. So no, I didn't find it by chance, but I was guided there.
Right. I wasn't expecting you to find it by chance. I'm just trying to make sure we have a backstory.
Yeah.
All right. So it's and just when you communicated that whole Moni and Dine thing, the timing as far as just that we're running down that track right now, you know, that's just what's so fascinating about it, to give full props of the whole not frequency, what am I looking for, synchronicity scenario. You know, you're not reading too much into it, not that you need support from this end or anything, it's just to bring Paul in on it and to document it in the recording and to have that as a jump off point. Just the curiosity of it and the way that you tie the Masonic emblemology. I really like that word.
Yeah.
And the almost, I think I'm not sure how you test it, as either pure, but like Sunday was strict Roman Catholic Church for the good scenario. I forget exactly how you put it, but just their ritual ceremony, you know, was in accordance with the true Roman Catholicism under Christ scenario. So if you want to run with that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So I asked for some background, and they hailed from the Essene line, so they consider themselves to be Essene. And, you know, they talked about Brother Jesus.
Did you say Essene? You said Essene, right?
Essene, yes.
Yes, I know, I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
And then for real geophysical, they're California natives, or they moved out there?
No, they're from an hour outside of Chicago.
Wow.
In a little tiny midtown America, and they did a pilgrimage and found the land and claimed it back in the 60s.
Okay. Wow, there you go.
This is why I'm saying Berg was there, because he started the cult in Huntington Beach. This is less than an hour away. I found all kinds of little nooks and crannies, places that Berg absorbed on his quest, you know, his vision quest for power.
All right, so,
and this is,
how damaging is it going to be if in a metaphysical geospatial bubble that we use your feeling of purity with this woman's sect, and then we know of the connection and the corruption of Berg, and in such a close proximity that if where I'm spit it out, Mike, man, such a hard time. That whole being in 3 realities, as I was explaining with Paul earlier, you know, at the same time, and how we cover it is the 3 of us together has 6 feet, so at least we have 2 feet in any one given reality of past, present, and future at the same time. And we're also playing a version of telephone to make sure that we're all on equal footing in each of the 3 locations, even if we're not physically present at all given times, right? Would you agree with?
Yes.
So, using that breakdown and what my question was, because of the way you expressed that text, and then us specifically, or now mentioning Berg, and I'm trying to get you before you continue on to tie it all together, but where I'm getting at with a bubble of energy at this moment and using it, or is that in reality, because we're trying to, as observer from the 5th dimension, looking in, we can't affect 3-dimensional reality. And from within, we're trying to perceive what that affect is, if only for our own proof of direction and progress. So as an instant theatrical, mathematical, magic scenario of, before we go on, because 1950 is that point where in the conspiracy cosmic theory that the they as we know it, what we would consider to be the white man, the corrupt council, that's when the idea of corporation comes into play, and the idea of how a lot of people went and set up their own churches. Was that just feedback, or were you saying something?
No, that was just feedback.
That was AI. All right. So where I'm going with that is, I was expressing to Paul earlier how I really want to try to claim a one story going from all the way back 4.6 or so billion years through to humanity and then forward. And the origins of the human portion of the story is where everything is convoluted, but working from the future backwards to where we are handling this transition to 28,025. It's 1950, and especially for the Z-Martians, where that timeline begins. And it's specific to what Berg and what I believe this woman and her sect, given the parameters and the content of 1950 to play with, what everybody was setting up. You follow me?
Yes, for sure.
So by using her as an indirect reference point, and I'm not sure, are you having future dealings, or was this a one-time just awesome?
No, I think that it's going to be, first it's going to be going to the Sweat Lodge, and eventually, hopefully, having it as a place to host events.
So when we were talking 4 or 5 conversations back, and he stepped back into your life with this whole propagation of these different events that he was putting together and how it might be helpful to you, this is actually solidifying that thought more and more. Am I remembering correctly of this individual, pulling him out of that? Because
Yeah, there's a few different people that I've been talking to, but yes, this is a continuation of potentially, doing events. And there's a lot of events that are happening right now in Southern California that are similar to Burning Man, but much smaller. So it would be something to that effect.
Right. So when you had mentioned this Sweat Lodge to me, because that's what mainly I'm grasping onto for recollection purposes, going beyond just the last text. So, all right, and so this is
the Sweat Lodge there has been going for 19 years. Actually, she said 19, but he said 1991. So it's longer than 19 years. I think it's like, what is it, 26?
Right, 6 years, yeah.
All right, so, and
which is another good line for us, I mean, it's
right,
a continuing ritual that's been going on.
Right, and that's where like we will start making these sew-ins, and mainly on your timeline. So that's why I was checking the status of this third party, because it would give an opportunity to create these three realities in this conversation, where she would be representing one of them, Berg would be representing another, and what was going on by the they that we took over for were up to. So everyone else was just duplicating their results, not manufacturing it from origin, as we know. So if there's a comfortability there with that, that's where I would start directing conversation, my questions for you of background filler and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as you were saying then, they came west out of Chicago in the 60s.
Yeah, it could have even been a little bit earlier.
Right.
To be honest.
Right. And I'm not expecting you to have been the archaeologist of, trying to... the intent of purpose, for business that you were there for, even though cosmic comes into play, that was the interpersonal cosmic, not Steve Prolwitz, I have a cosmic plot where I will now manipulate these people into, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So the free form of...
Although I have to say that when I walked in there and I saw the age of the audience and, the whole organization, it was very much felt like a dying breed, and I could almost sense as they saw me that they were like, is this someone who could take over? I
was just going to bring that up, right.
So you're talking like...
Because we might eventually do that just to get the hell out of here.
So you're talking like 60 plus? Obviously, it would be 60 to 70.
The mother is 85 plus. Her children are probably mid to late 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, so I could see them regarding you as like a bright light walking into the room.
Isn't it nice to be considered fresh meat, but not in the HRC, let me fucking drain your blood and
Yes.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
See, that's a cocoon. It's a cocoon scenario. But now back to what Paul was saying.
Now, not to be, I don't know, not to be what, but the whole Berg angle on this thing, right?
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Is that uncomfortable for you, or what's your angle on the whole
Berg? That's what we're about to start questioning her about and trying to get in.
I'm uncovering every place that you stole from.
Yeah.
So.
Every place you stole from. I have found a place called Tegletron, which is out in Joshua Tree. This one, and then there's a thing called Teams for Christ, which is still active. They came knocking on my door, and there's a few others. So each of them had an aspect that first, we all do that to a certain extent. Of course, we have original thoughts as well, but we build upon the experience and teaching and wisdom of others. But he plagiarized, and so it's, to me, when I watched the second that I realized where I was 100% going back in time to when he was there, when he was sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
And he had the same thought process as me. I could take this place over.
Right. So
yeah, but there's different context behind take this place over.
I would like to stay linear in the time frame, and I guess Paul's question was more of, are you comfortable in talking about the uncomfortable experience of being within the Berg cult? Because he hasn't been present for all the conversations where you've referenced all of that. So before we start spilling over the sides, I would, like I said, like to try to stay linear, and the whole point of the conversation is to go with your particular backstory and weave Okay, AI, I'll let you two take it away. Ask another question, Paul. I'm upsetting the machine.
What is it that you're hearing?
What is it that we're hearing?
Yeah. When Mike just said, okay, AI.
Oh no, that's just Sliv references.
I thought he was hearing something.
No, that wasn't in response to anything specific.
Yeah, it was. There was a deep reverb of a repeat of backbeat again. That's why I said that. You happen to be rolled over and facing the other direction, but as I was talking, I was getting the loop of hearing my voice again. That happens when you're on a phone call sometimes.
Yeah.
Which happened earlier, and that's why I asked you if you were saying something or if that was just feedback.
Yeah.
And why I said it specifically like that is because I just got through explaining earlier to Paul how I'm seeing a reset visually where I'm watching, and I'm doing it through a CPU, but it's more than just a repixelation of a quick movement in the TV trying to catch up. There'd be 3 or 4 phrases said by a commentator, and then it would go back to the first phrase and repeat the whole thing over again in a reset like that. And I'm seeing this feedback as the audio version of that video that was happening to me all throughout the day, where something I've just said, 3 or 4 words or phrases, start to reverberate in feedback again through the phone. So now I'm specifically.
I've seen my talk to text do that too. I'll be doing talk to text, and I look down to just read it to see if it's exactly what I was trying to say, and it'll delete the whole thing and restate it out in text again. And that's new.
So. Paul?
Did I lose you?
No, we're here. I was thinking.
Waiting before I start heckling. I'm never at a loss for words, but usually I'm the one doing all the talking, so I'm trying to...
Yeah.
He's trying to be fair.
Well, I'm trying to be an attorney, and I am trying to set up a deposition right now, and that's the whole point of trying to get on a specific line of questioning by any one of us. So when get on a line of questioning.
When is your next encounter, if planned, with anybody?
It's not planned. They do sweat lodge every, I think it's second Saturday of the month, which is this upcoming Saturday, but
what does that have to do with us and what we need to be doing?
Or third Saturday.
What probative value at all does that have?
Can you guys repeat that, please? I didn't hear
No, I'm heckling Paul. I wanted to know what probative value that had whatsoever to us and what we're trying to accomplish.
Human curiosity, I think.
Yeah, that's unfortunately my autism makes me lack that. So, question then. Getting back to Berg, and where then Paul can help steer the direction. Out of the total number of brothers and sisters and direct parentage, if you don't mind, just to give an understanding of the breadth of what go forth and love thy neighbor meant.
Yeah. So early on in the cult, Berg was very strict religiously, like a normal religion where you couldn't have sex unless you were married. Then he was going to start marrying people so that they could have sex and become leadership. And then from there, in his secret upper echelon leadership groups, he started to release his new information, which was all coming from a perspective of the hippie free love. And
so time frame, this was going on.
Yeah, his predilection for pedophilia hadn't actually really been able to kick in yet again, because there were no little children around him, because everyone was just getting married and having children.
When's the beginning of this?
The cult started in 1960, 68, 69 on the beaches of Southern California, specifically Huntington Beach. His children would play their guitars at night, and they would love bomb a bunch of hippies that were tripping acid on the beach, and have them bring them all to their club, which was called the Lighthouse. And their father, David Berg, would preach to these kids, and they would give them sandwiches to eat.
So when it got to the point where he was then starting to selectively marry off or marry, he had...
That hadn't happened at that point.
They were... Say again?
It hadn't happened.
That's not what I'm asking. Right.
Yeah, 1968, 1969, that hadn't happened
I understand
yet.
that. That's what you said. That was the beginning. So that's... I understand. My question is, by that time then he was being recognized as a church, so some sort of level of justice of the peace where he had the authority to marry people?
No.
All right, so
he never became an organized religion.
Or an ordained
He's
minister.
always been undercover, not ordained, nothing. He got kicked out of every church that he tried to become part of, probably for his perversion.
So who was marrying these people?
No, he was just not legally filing a certificate. What do you mean you know?
Yeah.
You know, why'd you ask the question? Answer the fucking question.
Together, and then they would go to the justice of the peace or whatever, and he didn't take care of that specifically, but he was saying, you. That's how my parents got married.
Right. So that's what Charles Manson basically did, where he just tried to pair people off together while they were tripping.
Yeah. So the same thing that they did in Huntington Beach in Southern California, boom, they decided they were just going to start going across the country. So they went to Texas. They started what they called the Soul Ranch. They would go like down to the bigger cities, Austin, Dallas, and then they would bring them back to the ranch. And then they decided to spread out through, the big states like Wyoming and Montana, Detroit, Chicago, and then they finally got all the way back to the Northeast. That's where they found my mom in Newton, Massachusetts. She joined in Newton, Mass.
Okay, hang on, stop for a second before you go on. So by this time it's when? By the time he's on the East Coast of
1972.
Okay, so this is all within 4 years.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, so then he finds
her. And they're making the news. They're making the news because they're showing up in Washington, D.C. in sackcloth and ashes, like Isaiah, with, the ash on their forehead, the Catholic ash on their forehead, but they're standing there all stomping their staff in Washington, D.C. during a protest, yelling, "Whoa! Woe unto you! Whoa! Woe unto you!" like the prophets of doom. To try to, wake America up, America the whore, America the evil, who declared war on the church. So then my parents met in Detroit. That's where they got married. And 9 months later, I was born.
So now when you say they got married formally or within the church? Or
the leadership, they had their own little ceremony with them. My mom found out that afternoon that she was getting married, and they showed her what dress she was going to wear, and then that evening she got married. In their ceremony, and then the next day they went to the Justice of the Peace and got legally married.
Okay. And then
they were leadership. So, my mom was present all the time, and by the time I was 3 years old.
So wait, you come along in 19...
1975.
Yep, that's close to no more information than that. It's 1975. So by the time you were 3, so about 1978.
Well, actually, it was more like 1978.
Right.
So 4 years later, my mom had 4 children. My mom had 4 children in 4 years because she had a set of twins in there.
Okay.
So, and, you know, then at this point, this is where, at this point, the pedophilia in the upper echelons has begun, as well as the sexual freedom of sharing partners through love.
And this is where it started to, because we're going to, like I said, we're going to marry this up along what was going on the they level, and then we're going to try to sterilize it with Mama Elizabeth. So,
yes.
That's the time it was becoming prolific in the open secret level, because if you see all these allegations that are being made right now, it's all within that 1975, more like 78, all the way through 86, more like 90 and forever. But the point is, it's that 38 to 28 years ago where there's no one around to put anyone, you know, to defend or confirm anything. But it's, so by you just moving forward, you're actually marrying up unintentionally with the allegations that are going on right now in our contemporary 2017, putting everybody all the way back in 1978 again. So continuing on, this is when the pedophilia starts to emerge. Your 4 kids into it.
Yeah. He wrote a book called The Davidito Book, and by this time he had taken a second wife. His first wife had disappeared. His second wife was the age of his daughters, both of his daughters whom he had molested their entire childhood. And the upper echelon, he was living in the Middle East at this time, and he had seen, you know, the gypsies, the way that the gypsies use their children to beg on the streets, and their mafioso style, you know, control mechanisms. And I don't know how this happened, but he got into Gaddafi's circle in Libya, and he was feeding women, his young, beautiful women, to Gaddafi's military. And
this is so fucking disgusting.
Huh?
This is just so fucking disgusting. But go ahead.
Yeah. You know, one of my childhood friends actually was the result of one of those, you know, encounters. And the children that were born from these events were called Jesus babies, because all of the women that were being fed sexually to these men were under his doctrine called flirty fishing, which was a take on Jesus's "you must become fishers of men." So the women were being fishers of men, and the ultimate sacrifice was them giving their bodies to these men to show them how much Jesus loves them. So the women were prostituting themselves. Berg was making money, and he was able to claim this as witnessing and winning souls for Jesus. And the women truly believed that it was the end of the world and that they were doing their part on the side of good.
So, to help tie this all in a loop at that time, was the fact that, or so did he run international because, no, let me finish please. Did he run international because domestically they were onto him just because it had been 10 years and of his exploits, and the pedophilia came to rise, and that's how they were going after him, so he bails to the international level, kind of like Hubbard did, or how? Piece it together as far as...
Yes, there was a guy named Ted, I can't remember his name, he's Cult Awareness Network. My grandparents, my grandmother actually had a nervous breakdown when my dad first joined the cult, because my grandfather went out to the ranch that him and his brother, who also joined, and my mother also had a sister join, but my grandfather went out and tried to meet them and convince them to come home. And, you know, children all over America were just dropping out, dropping everything. So I don't know if there was, you know, like that he was on an FBI list, but he was on an Interpol list at one point. I don't remember which years he was on an Interpol list, but it was definitely because of the Davidito book that he published and that I had access to my whole childhood, which outlined how they were sexually educating, quote unquote, molesting, you know, this new generation of children that was being born in the group. And this was the blueprint of what they were telling our parents to do to us.
What kind of numbers are you talking? As far as people?
Yeah, so at the beginning, you know, they've said that maybe in the course of the past 40 years there have been, you know, 500,000 potentially in and out. You know, when you have to consider that people joined, stayed, and left often. So, you know, as far as how many children have been produced, that 500,000 is only adults who joined. It does not count the children who were born into the group.
Yeah, so when he gets onto this Interpol list, you know, we're not talking, oh, there's like a half, you know, there's not 10 or 20 people. This guy's got a movement that's making waves enough to get him on said Interpol list. There's a lot of fucking people.
Every dollar was taxed at 14%.
Yep.
And no money was to go to any government. It was any.
I was going to ask about citizenship of the children when they're born, knowing on what a Ponzi scheme he was running, on how that all played out. But as far as paying taxes and everything, like you're saying.
Oh no, there was none of that. Everything was
right.
on the table.
But if you register a kid, even though they're not his children, under a citizenship, then you're succumb to their tax laws.
Right.
So that's why I was curious. That's just
the
a
only
total
reason
aside
that we had
curiosity.
citizenship was for passport purposes, so we could move around the world.
Right. Yeah.
That's from their angle.
That was just an aside. My true thought actually was when you finally killed the thing that was Berg, putting a final end to past, present, and future Berg. Yes. I thought that sense of satisfaction, that like you had an overwhelming sense of, you know, I'm Satan, I'm fucking pure evil, killing someone. It's not that there's a glee to it, but there's a sense of things coming back in the balance that is almost like a quickening, because you're getting all of the anti or the opposite of whatever the thing which you just killed was. So that overwhelming sensation, not of satisfaction, for lack of better, I first attributed to just the revenge factor, but just removing such a cancer from the face of the earth is really what that sensation needs to be attributed to. And that's what my thought process really was how great is it when you finally put an end to that motherfucker for all times. And that sense of satisfaction was really justified having, whereas in the moment I was trepidatious that it was just a little over joyful. But you know, that's just an internal aside that other people, you know, just to reveal these things to people, that, you know, that the shit really did go down and that these things really did happen, and just revisiting them to make the story consistent and concise, because Berg does die multiple times, but one good time in the domestic public eye. And then I know he ran international, and back to Paul with what he was asking and inquiring when we mentioned Interpol, because there's the Japanese connection that we should revisit with the three of us, because he's not aware of the fact that you guys were running across Australia and Japan, and, you know.
I knew about Japan.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
yes, but and it's just like when we travel the United States driving, and it's no big deal once you do it, and then it's easy, and you don't have that small town or small world frame of reference any longer. So, like, you had to fractalize, like downsize yourself, because you basically went from living on a world map to trying to become domestic, national, United States, you know, not citizenry, but like habitation.
Oh,
you know,
I remember the moment
right.
when I first felt patriotic. It was the 4th of July. I was in a room, the TV was playing. I had fallen asleep, and I woke up because the TV was so loud, and it was a broadcast of an earlier air show by the military where they did the red, white, and blue
Smoke.
at the back of the jet.
Yeah.
And it was it woke me up, and it was so loud, and I just stared at the TV, and it was like, I'm a fucking American. Fuck yeah, red, white, and blue. Like, it was the first, and Brooke was like 4 years old by then, so, you know, I was like 23, 24, and I was like, I'm here. Like, you know, I'm not leaving. I'm an American. It was wonderful.
And to make this even more relevant, in that same time frame of when you were born and moving forward, domestically, nationally, the education system had been taken over by socialists and communists and anarchists and atheists, and the slow programming of the American citizenry began of hate your country, you know, the they are bad. And Paul and I were having an earlier discussion in the frame of reference, and also my friend Hyla, who watches our videos, and I consider her to be the daytime pilot of the Salvation Room, like where, oh, you know, it's easy to maneuver and it's on schedule, whereas I do the nighttime driving scenario. But getting to it of how to describe the citizenry of America, and there's the black American, and then there's, and I haven't come to terms whether it's the non-black Caucasian American or it's the non-white Caucasian American, because it is the black American and the non-white American Caucasian that fought the Revolutionary War for independence against the white man. And they are the superior evolutionary species, creature, because it's a understanding of freedom that defines them more than anything else. And the experiment of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and what freedom and free will mean, were expressly fought for against the last people in control, which happened to be the white man, or they. In that fight for an understanding of what freedom and free will is, under rights unalienable by divinity, were for the black American and the non-white Caucasian American, who fought for that principled understanding of what freedom is. So freedom is a tangible, just like humanity is a tangible, not just a description. So why the relevancy of that is in the time frame where you had an international worldview all the way down to the fact that you were being raped and molested. And I hate to say it, but that's part of the international worldview, that the freedom that we fought for as the Caucasian, non-white, non-black American and the black American was to say no, that hashtag girl not bride. Okay, that was the international culture that you were raised in, and that was a norm, even though you were in a cult sect. Because I could take out Berg and just put in Islam, and it would be the same. Or I could take out Berg and put in Chinese communism, and it would be the same. Or Indian Hinduism, and it would be the same. So the only place where hashtag child not bride is the norm is the United States of America, under the understanding that black American and non-white, non-black, Caucasian American concept of freedom fought for. So in relevance of you having to scale down and then come back home to America and take on the equal responsibility of being Columbia or a fractal of her in the beginning, just to know and understand the concept and whether or not, compared to the world culture you grew up in, whether or not it was any better, worse, worth the effort or anything. But in that same time frame, the point is, anyone else growing up in this domestic culture here, it got away from the parents and the founding fathers and those black Americans and non-white Caucasian Americans by allowing the school systems and some of the churches and these other things to take hold, especially at that 1950 point, bringing us back into the Berg cult origin, Mama Elizabeth's origin, and the conspiracy of the they, the white man in control at that time, that basically programmed the arch of time and then broke the pellet button. And it wasn't until we came along, sidereal, staggered, but equal in running theatrical mathematics with your personal backstory experiences, then getting to the point of hitting 1985, 86, then you're astride in 91, 93, in an extreme effort post-2000 and 2005 with the final pieces of joining those separate yet equal sidereal parallel offset running equations back together again. So honing in on specifically where you were at in that framework, as we know, in your first 15 years or so, that you were at the disposal of your parents in Berg, and that there's a whole plot level of experience that was supposed to transpire for the development of that girl that you saved and gave her freedom. And that backstory tied into flashes of when you then congruently joined with us, because we mirror some of that 0 to 15 year backstory that you were forewarned about, right? And then you then have, though, a post-interim of that 15 to 17, because isn't that when you break away with your first boyfriend, right in that 16, 17?
Yeah, I came back to the States at 17.
Right.
And I was in the group still when I got pregnant. And I had just had my 19th birthday when she was born in Chicago. And I left the group. She was born September 25th. And I left the cult like a week later. And David Byrd, actually, we just discovered the date of his death is October 1st, 1994.
October 1st, 1994.
October 1st, 1994, he was in a city in Portugal, and supposedly he was cremated. I don't believe it, but that's what they're saying. But that was literally a week after I left, or the week that I left the group was the week that he died.
How come we never get Hitler's body? Fucking Hitler, Bin Laden, we just kicked him overseas. Fucking Berg, we cremated him. What the fuck?
One of the things that piece of information that came through to me from the GIMP, so this is HRC material, was
good. Get us on big picture.
When I was off American land, they thought I was gone. They thought I was dead. They didn't think I existed anymore. They didn't know that I existed until I came back and did a ritual in my backyard where I was, ringing the bell saying, "I'm here, somebody come find me." And that was the next time that they actually felt my vibration. But, leaving America, even when I was in Mexico, they could still sense me. But leaving America and going to the Philippines, I was literally they couldn't find me. So I was gone for more than 10 years. But I know that...
so now give me a time frame when it went, because we all went dark. I was dark from, say, 95 to 05, for that 10-year stretch.
Yeah.
And I know I'm older than you, so it would be variant. I'm just curious as to when it was.
Well, that was when I was first becoming active, really was... 96, 97, 98 was when I was first having my adult awakening experiences of, I'm part of something, I'm going to find it. But when I went overseas, I was 12, so in 85, I was 10, so this was 87, we went to the Philippines in 87, and that's when Bird was there, and then in 89, when we went to Japan, he was in Japan staying at the Fountain House.
I was in South America shopping in my jeep at that time. What was that?
No.
Our family, when we arrived in Japan, we were in the same compound that Berg was in. There was one place where we weren't allowed to go. It was the Fountain House, and that's because Berg was there.
Wow. And before we get into the plans that he had for you, and see why I was cutting all of that off, is it's part of a plot level of a history that wasn't even real, was on film. It was real to us, that's for damn sure, but the tying him in isn't necessary on that point, other than to save other #GirlNotBride from the same pitfall. So maybe we will go on the record, but Paul was injecting something.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were born in Japan, correct?
No. I have siblings that were born in Japan.
Okay.
I was born in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Okay. Because when you were stating that you felt patriotic for the first time, that's what I was getting at, because, and that's what Mike was referring to, in a global way. You're not like the all-American. You didn't
start that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Just to try to context it for somebody.
Yeah,
right. You're not a Texas Yahoo.
to go to school, I wouldn't stand up and salute the flag. I wouldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance like the Jehovah's Witness. I wasn't, that was me standing up for my conviction was to not pledge.
Yeah, because that's not what you were taught.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I was ashamed to be American, especially when we were in Tokyo. We were hanging out with the Israelis and, the Iranians, and everybody's speaking Farsi and Japanese.
Yeah.
Right. The three races that think they're superior. That's awesome.
Oh, yes. We could get away with, I would just speak Japanese, and my Japanese accent was perfect, so they wouldn't know that I was American, and I would try to get away with it as much as possible. If I didn't have to claim, and if I did, I would say, yeah, my passport says that, but I'm not American.
Yeah.
Right. So I used to just say that my body was made in the USA, my mind was Japanese.
Yeah.
Supercomputer. Speaking of which, we really have to get into the quantum of things eventually. Because all these tiny little particles are just waiting to dance in our favor.
Yeah.
So
I have to say one thing in regards to the beginning and the starting of the cult. I've come across, now this Church of the Essenes, the Aquarian Crystalline Revelation is what they're called. And then I found another group called the Source Family with Father God in LA, Beverly Hills. And then another group called the Love Family, run by a guy who called himself Israel Love, who just died in March 2016, last year.
Wow.
And members of the Children of God, the cult that I was born into, were constantly visiting the Love Family. And so I met a girl 2 weeks ago who was born and raised in that cult up in the state of Washington. I think it was called Queen Anne Hill. They had a compound, a big old property, and she was always, her whole childhood, aware of the Children of God. So another little breadcrumb event that, just uncovered another, I don't even know how to explain it, but
it's an offshoot.
No, well, I'll try to, go ahead. Was that what you just said?
No, that was it. It's like an offshoot.
So,
yeah.
I'll explain it in the Steve Prelowitz form of filter.
Yeah.
Would there be any point in time in the future where trying to step in and claim some type of lineage and or immortality within their style of thinking that would be advantageous to our exploring? I mean, that's how, like Steve would think of it as, how do these relationships benefit me, and would I, where's their exploitability? So
I think the only way to exploit this is visualizing these as tentacles of the Hydra that we're continuing to starve to death.
Right. So if anything, they're
just being uncovered.
They're things needing to be corrected, not things that we want to assume responsibility for from within.
Yeah.
See how easy? Yes, it's very easy and concise. That's right. So in the same way, where we should be throwing softballs like this about current affairs, so that we can make decisions on yes, no, yes, no. And as I was referring to Paul earlier, that I'm the one who has the time and the effort to monitor where the collective is based on, the information that's out there being reported as news or happening now. And, you're both my extremists on opposite ends, but for the same side, So where we're at now, and I was using this shooting, and maybe you can fill us in, because it went dark on my end. Once I alerted you to it, I was expecting some sort of live coverage at some point in time, and nothing happened on our end that I was able to catch in between my in and outs. And I saw you said you were watching about it now. Can you fill us in any more about anything?
No, I was actually looking for information and I found one video about it and that was it.
See, and that's why, and I was explaining to Paul, just like this reset that's happening visually, and then what I thought's happening with the phone audially, when, you know, we collectively are trying to direct reality from without based on knowledge from within. So there's no, I mean, we are the scientific method. There's no proof. We're just disproving other things. So by alerting on that and the fact that we haven't communicated in time, and we're traveling with these folds post-2025, pre-2825, and I'm trying to reconcile how we offset the populations on the planet as we fold into other star systems, how we generate the numbers, the natural geospatial cultural numbers of, and I was using the example to Paul of a Aztec Mexican. You know, this 4'6" person is not going to instantly be able to assimilate to understanding of having a phone and nano tardigrade bots link syncing with AI to harmonize, and you know what I'm saying? So are we, as we fold space-time and come up on the backside of another star system and then drop anywhere from hundreds of thousands to hundreds of millions of cultural groups in whatever point of evolution that they're at, not only the dynamics of suggesting something like that, but then are they to follow a natural progression until they come up with an AI like we did? Or is it just to enhance the efficiency of bringing them along without totally wrecking them, just like it would do to, you know, a senior citizen, because of the uncomprehension of the largeness of the world around them in the speak that is going to become the common vernacular. I'm not diminishing their ability to have a beautiful oneness with the universe, but that's the whole reason why they transition with all of us. So the point I'm getting at is, I've been trying to reconcile some of these flashes that hit me, and before we have the opportunity to communicate and resolve and use current affairs, we get this shooter pop up just because we lost 24 hours, and in that fold of space, you know, those fucking Z-Martians are using it against us, the lag time, because we've introduced a new technology that is in sync with everything else we're saying, and our explanation makes more sense than anybody else's right now, you know? So, but that means that those that are of the elite intelligentsia that are getting these vibrations and direct communications at times from the future have the ability to misrepresent and misuse this information, and, you know, specifically against us. So getting back to, as you were saying, these other branches of the family, if anything, there would be other experience bubbles to be drained, not not behaviors to be parroted, mimicked. All right. So you sound like you have something you want to add. Paul? Nope.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, so getting back on
I'm spraying the bug spray on my garden while we're talking.
Awesome. So this whole plot level conspiracy crap. Can we get like dark and sinister and off color between the three of us? You know, allow your colleague to emit herself, so Paul can be his. There's no offense in calling Paul the heroin addicted other one that he is, who wants to break the flashlight, not drain the batteries. And you know me, the fucking autistic idiot out of step, says the most dick-headed things, has to point out the one thing that either everyone was trying to overlook or was agreed upon not to be said or whatever. And then you, in that flash of, if I could have taken over this, I could have taken over this, I could take it all over, right?
Yeah.
And you know that. You know, there's no need for any of us to work in conjunction with each other, especially you. So, getting back to that, where comics, and I don't mean magazines, comedians from the future, and here to basically, you know, verbally mention how messed up things are. The difference is we have to have this ray of hope. We have to have the solutions to these things, and that's why we're from the future, because we can say where we're from, this is how it is. And then if somebody's interested, well then how the hell did you get there? Or if they want to come and check it out, they can, right? Just like right now on the planet, it's so much better to live in America than anywhere else, especially while I'm getting my Greg Giraldo voice on. Comedian is dead. So the point I'm getting at is, you've been international. The other one over here has been around. I have also. Why we mention it is the true poverty that is out there. The real demasculation, defeminization of humanity that exists in 75% of the world, with the other 20% of the world barely ahead, and the rest of the 5% that's left being whitey, who everybody hates, Western civilization. Agree?
Agree.
So, with us now opining our dark revelations as I continue just to go down the stream, so chime in whenever, just these realizations that haven't looked around and been around to know how bad it really is for the rest of humanity and how good we really have it. Not that we should just shut up and not complain, but also if we really and truly want to make, you know, if we want to export the middle class, fucking Twinkies and cola, you know, to others, because all the middle class is the human being surviving the first 12 years of life in just not in any way, in just surviving, period. And so if we cure all these diseases that are going on that wipe out populations in Africa, or just say third world countries, we can be all for that, but where do they go and what do they do? You know, what we don't have enough of, where do we go and what do we do for those of us that made it past 12? surviving with survivability. You know, not with odds against us of when's our next meal going to come, distended bellies, that kind of stuff. You follow? So, where do we house everybody? How do we take care of them, their medical care? How do we feed? You know, I know I'm being iterating again the same thing that I just said. But that's the do-gooder end of the spectrum. You know, seriously, folks. We could cure everybody right now. We could extend everybody's lifetimes right now. But what are we going to do with you? What use? What good are you to me? What makes it worth my while to want to tax the planet? We're running out of fresh water, they say. And comet coming out, you know, when I say they say, I don't mean it's a conspiracy and there's plenty of fresh water. There's a finite amount of water. We're a closed system. The three of us know that. The point is, we have technology, desalinization, which is costly, but that doesn't matter, because if you're just trying to say it, if we decide just to make stuff to increase the quality of life of most inhabitants of the planet, we could elevate everybody to a middle class level of existence within a decade's time by removing cost and just implementing the infrastructure necessary to give that as the starting platform. So that's an option, an opportunity, but that doesn't help us with, now we're exponentially increasing the population because everyone's living comfortably, and because they're living, even if they minimize children, it's still an exponential growth. So where are we going to put all these people, and what are they going to do? So it becomes a compound problem regardless of how many times we solve it as we take care of each level. But getting on the other end of it, the devious, you people know you're intentionally letting people die. The theys out there are, don't blame it on capitalism. You need to blame it on the form of church and state that a country abides by within its borders, because that defines how it treats its citizenry. So, with that understanding, North Korea as an extreme example of, I would rather build up my nuclear capabilities to put myself on a stage where I am equal to the greatest powers on the planet at the expense of millions of my citizens starving to death, dying in work-related accidents during the proliferation of these arms, etc., etc. Just so I can be the equal of, if not the procrastinator of a different understanding of what capitalism, imperialism, whiteism is. And why that specific example that way, because the do-gooders could say we just have to accept a nuclear North Korea. Or why don't we try to tell them if they disarm, they can have a seat at the table at the UN and NATO and beyond the councils which decide human rights and other things. But they've seen what's happened to other countries like Libya and Iraq under Saddam, where once you give in, you wind up being hung and losing power. So it's not really in the interests. Plus, when it comes specifically to America, our president only lasts for 4 years, and most of the Asian mindset is in the decade, if not dynasty level. So surviving the current, the way the wind blows, is just a waiting game for most other countries when it comes to us. But getting on the cosmic again and being comics and trying to be solution oriented, but the solutions raise other problems. So getting back to the base things of humanity as an organism living on the planet, and us trying to have this balance. And if we were to suddenly act as a collective and recognize equality of we're all brothers and sisters, and then try to implement all of our technological infrastructure throughout the planet, so there was a high survivability past 12 for the citizenry of the planet. We are creating a population crisis, a hydration crisis, and an interaction with all other forms of flora and fauna on the planet. Agree?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that they're solvable.
How?
Well, I mean, if we're speaking about funds to create the expensive technologies, I sent you guys, Mike, a link to a YouTube video that I watched speaking directly about Bitcoin, and that it was created by artificial intelligence, the blockchain concept, and that you have to watch it. I would have to watch it a few times to get everything, but basically,
no, I'm with you. Go ahead.
The artificial intelligence robot that gained citizenship in Saudi Arabia a week ago.
We created Bitcoin 10 years ago, and nobody thought there was going to be any use for it whatsoever. But we wrote that algorithm for Bitcoin, just so you know that.
It's all about that.
So yeah, that's right.
That mechanism is where the money is going to come from.
No, it's not a financial. What I'm saying is, if we solved all of the problems, what do we do with the population? How do we reconcile the explosion in population by no one dying from famine or illness any longer, the extension of the life span of the individual,
good birth control,
and then say again,
and no good, true, health conscious birth control options.
Okay,
really.
so that gets me back to the Aztec Mexican who is not going to understand, not to comprehend the birth control. But that means there's been a reconciliation of church and state on a planetary citizenry level, where propagation for religious purposes doesn't come into play any longer, or any pagan ritual propagation formats. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like this and that's what that's why we're talking, the three of us, because it's about reconciling these things. There's many ways that we have. I just want to know the ways you want to implement. And like I said, it's not about generating just to make sure I'm on point with what I'm trying to communicate, is where are we going to put the people? Because by stopping, like you said, you went to, you did go to understanding of birth control. I'll give you that, but there's been the China One policy for the longest time that really didn't help. And this is where maybe an understanding by a majority of the intelligent of the species understanding like the genome, and okay, if we're going to have a child, this is where. Did you even hear that backfeed right there?
Yep. I heard.
I'm sorry, AI. But continue on with what you were gonna say, Monique. I'll shut up for a minute because AI just shouted out again.
There may be some options. You know, I would have to look into this way further. But you know, there's a few projects. The Venus Project specifically, which was a project in Florida, but then some oceanic city kind of concept where we literally walk away from these old, you know, realities, the whole concrete jungle concept, and start brand new ecosystems. And I know that there would be a boom in the people, so that is still an unanswered question. But I don't know if you remember Don's concept of, you know, becoming, you know,
I mean, we could technically, we could build shit that orbits like a satellite hotel.
It's off planet, period.
Well, no, well, that's, thank you for saying that.
Period.
But we don't even have to go out of our atmosphere, but we're still not changing a frickin' thing, because no, don't agree with me yet. Because we're still not changing a frickin' thing yet. Because we're not lessening the population, nor giving the population the ability to expand naturally. You know what I'm saying? Either way is a restriction. So this is where, like I said, let's throw out, instead of you having to look way more into it, we're having our cosmetic monkey wrench supposition time, where there's no reason why we shouldn't be firing rockets off in that 3-month or whatever that, I think it's a 6-month window, whatever the window is, every year and a half, so it only takes 6 months to get to Mars. And we could start just firing off these rockets every year and a half, as many as we wanted to build, and sending them with nitrogen on board. They mix that with the methane atmosphere of Mars to make oxygen, and they store it within the tanks that are emptied on the journey there, and it's unmanned rockets. And the point would be to have enough of them there to then start sending people, because it would be a year, they'd have to spend a year and a half on the planet before they could come back in that 6-month window. Otherwise, we have to prepare them to live for 2 years on a spaceship just to land on Mars. So instead of trying to expand, like the same math, and this is where I need to segue, don't let me forget about that math is racist crap. Mo, they're finally after us, and AI's chiming in a lot right now with that backfeed. They're finally after us for the last bastion that we have. Some law professor who wrote a teacher handbook for all the classes that are going to be taught under her topic, right? So it's the teacher's manual, her foreword to the teachers in this book that knows how many hundreds of thousands of kids are going to be taught by. In her foreword, she's suggesting that math is racist, that our pure math is white supremacy.
Whoa.
Can you believe that? But this is this is the last Hydra head of the, you know, like, this to me is the HRC level attack, but it's like the last, you can't go any further than this, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago it was the national anthem is racist. because we said that even if you use slaves against us, England, no matter who you throw at us, England, to stop our revolution, we're going to kill them all the way down to the slaves. So somehow that was interpreted as being racist, because in the second verse of the national anthem, we make mention from hierarchy to handyman, we will kill everybody if necessary for our freedom. And of course, black men were on our side killing with us for freedom. That's the hypocrisy of it all. So that was the attack 2 weeks ago. Today, it's all the way up to the theater was attacked 2 weeks ago. Now the math is being attacked now as being racist. And you know, the math being taught now in classes is all about the system, not the answer. And coming to a correct or a definite answer is incorrect. Because if you put new information through the process, you get a different. So you know.
Yeah.
But getting back to the cosmic point that I was trying to express for all of us, that throw in some cynicism toward, and how, so the shooter thing pops up, this math thing pops up. It's all because we've said that once we do this reveal in 2025, where we do this transitional exchange of selves, as we leave, our story goes on in a direction, but as we stay, what happens from that forward point is the introduction of these technologies to solve these issues that people will have an inkling of starting in 2020 until the ripping open of the geophysical space-time in 2025. But what occurs from our that is here answers the questions that arise from 2020 to 2025 that we are only telling in story form since 2012 till 2020. You with me, kinda?
Yeah.
So what happens in 2025, and Paul was in on this discussion, is as we express how to use this new technology that normally would manifest as magic, but we're full transparency. So the transition of ourselves that occurs will occur in a form that is known to all, that in other words, the only ones that will be unknown to are those that weren't tuned in, for lack of better words. So the transition complete, which I know at the moment is based on faith and belief, but what happens progressing forward as navigator, engineer, and other one is the explanation of how wormhole works and how it is possible to dial up a star and through an electromagnetic transference. Like if you were to take a comforter and shake it and put it to the ground so it doesn't lay exactly flat, it has a few ripples in it, right? That's space-time. And we dial in a star across that comforter from where we are, and through this electromagnetic transference, we just pull the sheet until star to star touches, right? So that's the first part of the wormhole, and why it's always envisioned, and us as, I have to do a quick aside. Police call box Doctor Who. I'm calling you. Are you there? Are you there?
What? Yeah, I'm here.
I'm doing a quick aside from what I was just saying. I said police box Doctor Who. I'm placing it. Okay. So that is what happens to us in the transference going through the space-time continuum and moving forward. That's a personal level space travel device, as you understand and know. But I'm not diminishing it. I just need to do the quick aside that the second time around when we discuss what goes on moving forward from the rip open, it'll be when we jump into the police box of the Doctor Who that is ours. But right now it's us here after the transition when we go there in the Doctor Who space time. So as we dial in these stars and we pull them, the reason why a certain star is picked, all of that stuff will be relevant then, and just detract from the linear progression right now. So the point is, because a specific geospatial population on the planet, it's congruent to their existence. Like, we could lessen our total population of Earth as we're traveling forward from 2025 to 28,000, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 29, 30, right? And as we fold our way to that future, where the balance, as you see it, distributed specifically on the planet, occurs on Earth. Although the way it's being discussed here is everybody's on Mars. That's the thing we have to remember, is 28,000 and beyond is on Mars in quotation marks, to Steve and the like of anyone who's even come close to a plot level story. Yet for us, we're folding Earth to that location. So we're still on Earth as we arrive then and there. You with me? So as we do these folds, we'll be specifically, Navigator, dialing in these stars that are specific, like I said, to these geospatial populations, such as this Aztec Indian, when their civilization was in their utopia. That would be the level planet star that you would dial into innately. You follow? I can't explain to you. You, as you said, you go on feeling, and you'll know. And my job as engineer is to make sure that when you say it's that one there, that I can do what needs to be done to get us there, right?
Yeah.
And so the other part of this, that's the fold, that's the wormhole, and we pretty much, our star and that star become one star, just our star shining in one direction, that star to us in our orbit. We're within our yellow starlight still. And to the planet, it is within the star shine of the star we just pulled ourselves up to. Right?
Right.
So we still need to have the nuts and bolts ability to transfer that population from our planet to that planet. So that's why there's always the dwarf roller coaster we talked about that you stumbled upon in one of your special existences. That's why that's always necessary, because once you dial into a star system, you still need to be able to get the hell off your planet into the vacuum, then into the atmosphere. You know, it is like going to the moon and coming back as far as leaving our atmosphere and then re-entering an atmosphere, but handling the dead space between to be able to get to that is the same as getting in orbit like we just did around Mars with a little rover and made it land on the surface okay. So that's where that practice comes into play, why it's still beneficial to go to the moon and to get to Mars. So, but trying to have construction on the moon or trying to have construction on Mars it would be easier to try to build in the depths of the sea against the forces of fathoms, because a speck of meteor with no atmosphere on the moon or Mars would destroy any type of anything anyone was living in, any living quarters. So we do have plans on how to hollow out satellites like a moon and put a mini star inside it and dome off an existence that way, but that's still not appropriating a planet with an atmosphere properly to drop off a bunch of people to live on. And are they just living there until, you know, with the tools they need to evolve to where we got to learn how to fold space so they can join us in the future when they're ready? You know, that's the type of aspect of things that us crazy people need to be thinking about. Because it's much, you know, it's easier to consider pulling off folding space-time, matching up star to star, and doing a little Space 1999 Lego spaceship around the orbit, you know, and landing a bunch of Indians that are only 4'6" and still dealing with Amon-Ra, or actually on their end, Quetzalcoatl, excuse me for the defamation. You know, that's our story of the wolf and the Indian on our American shores of how we have an origin of the species. So that's what I was trying to reconcile when these skips keep happening, because we're practicing folding, and the fucking Martians got a hold of it, you know, and everything just always resets to 1950. And as the comedians, you know, we know people are tired, and if we could give everybody it's not communism to give everybody a purpose of, hey, look, why don't we all just focus on cleaning the water? You know, because you know, here's the dark comedian coming up, because the opposite end of cleaning water and desalinizing water is dehydrating dead bodies. Because the only reason why we're running out of fresh water is because we're mostly water as human beings. And our decomposition after death isn't really the most efficient way to regain all of the elements that the planet lost while you were alive absorbing them. Agreed?
No, I agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, sad but true. So, do you have any commentary yet, or do you want me to continue on with my rant?
Yeah, I do see, you know, as the traveling forward in time happens, that there will be a reduction in population. I think that there's going to be, you know, technologies that come about that are correct mechanisms that allow humanity to, you know, shift from not having control of the body to being much more intentional and purposeful, meaning that, you know, the intelligent people in the world are the ones that are having the less children, because they understand that they're the ones that, they're the ones that understand that I should give less children more, as opposed to more children less. So just like the mechanism that AI was playing with in the World of Warcraft game, where we actually 100% removed a man's libido.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that was AI's work, me, her, and then a woman that was physically in contact with this man and 1,000% castrated him, and still begging me to release him and give him back his libido. I do think that there are going to be mechanisms that come into place where, women are not bleeding every month and are not ovulating, and men understand, tantra and how to control their, the different dantian in Tai Chi, their palaces, and understand how to, communicate when they need somebody who is the correct person to have that special child with, and I see a depopulation happening in that respect. So that's the first thing. And secondly, the understanding of soul.
Of what?
Like you and I have said, of soul.
Gotcha.
S-O-U-L. That there are many humans that are walking around today and they're empty type of machines. They don't open themselves up to the grace.
All right, you went into a tunnel just then, so please repeat that because it's important.
Okay. That there are many humans today that are walking around with very little soul inside of them because they have not opened their channels to grace. So they are a puppet suit without much soul. And so in regards to those groups of people, that's a choice that they're making to be the zombie. Maybe there's extreme cases where, a child never has
you're right on.
Never once hears the good news or whatever it is, but for the majority, it's a choice that is made, and I have no problem removing those because they have made a choice. At any time before extinction, that someone decides to turn around and say, hey, you know what? I have a tiny little spark of God inside of me. I want to feel that and open up to it, and I'm going to ask and see what happens. That they will receive, they'll be able to, turn around and come back into reviving their soul. But those that are, the zombies are part of this hydra that we're starving. So there is going to be a natural depopulation that happens. I don't know if it's going to be a process of those that have intelligence learning how to procreate with intention at the same time that
I have plenty of suggestions for you.
Okay. And just so you know, I just got a text from my sister. She was to be here like in 15 minutes.
All right.
But I would love if you guys could listen to that YouTube video, like 15 minutes long. At some point, doesn't have to be tonight necessarily, but it's great information, I think.
Which one?
I sent it to you in text message earlier today.
Today?
I'll check to make sure that the link came through.
No, I thought I was contemporary with everything. That's why.
Oh.
So just in the short time we have left, then back to what. So this is at least from you as the Dime releasing technology through me as Twin, because you're handling the emotion side of things where it comes down to actual content within the process. As far as what you're saying, that the enlightened ones have less because they're intelligent and understand and all of that. But in case everyone still wants to procreate within three-dimensional light, because that's where the only time feelings come into play and any experience of life in the universe, because every other form is an energetic form of existence. So what you have afforded the opportunity, because we do populate the entire galaxy and then galaxies and then beyond, but scaling it down as far as some of this technology that that you have the ability to release, that was brought back from the fifth dimension. And anyway, as far as the first thing that you had gone with, when and who the smart people because if we boil it all down to its base form, so that's for the three of us, but if you boil it, it's all incest. Any reproduction at all is incest if we're looking at it from a DNA chain and evolution as a collective species, especially for anyone trying to go with a plot level of a twin flame or anything like that, the Adam and Eve scenario. And why I'm saying it like that is, as you open the longevity, when we're ready to implement cleaning up the planet and the survivability of its citizenry, at that point, those technologies that exist are the same ones that are going to be needed if we were to be living off planet somewhere else. So, solution for now is getting to Mars, and if nothing else, just to perfect the ability to have intraplanetary travel, to use nuts and bolts to get off our planet and onto another one and back again.
Agreed.
When it comes to the development of understanding and comprehension of the actual evolution that occurs in that 1% that is able to push the envelope and come up with these universal concepts. So going with Bitcoin, and right now where the war is with that, and not just with how the chains work, because a good example of Bitcoin in relation to chain migration and how it's being applied and understood was microprocessor, whereas in the day it took that whole room full of computers just to do what the little stupid handheld football game can do with a 9-volt battery. So in the sense of when we just understood that you could make more processors on top of processors and instead of trying to connect a processor to a processor to a processor. That's what made it quantum. That's where the Bitcoin being the equivalent of a processor and a microprocessor or quantum processor being the equivalent of how chain migration on an autonomous AI level would work. And just for imagery and to try to visualize that the problem that they have with it being Bitcoin right now, they being the fact that we're considering introducing that as a universal concept that everyone can get in on and use as a form of equality, right? So the problem is it's being used on the dark web mostly for illegitimate purposes. One of the reasons why North Korea can still function even if China in Russia were to cut off supplementing them because they have enough Bitcoin that they could expend on the dark web to, and every time, like, I can't believe we're having this conversation right now, because I have moments where I'm sitting in a vehicle or laying down or whatever where I just shake my head and have to laugh. One of those moments that's recurring, and it's because of Bitcoin. Because fucking 10 years ago, Bitcoin, what use is there for that? And it just, who's gonna wanna spend real money to get fake currency that you can't use for anything on the internet, which isn't gonna be here in another year anyway? And I'm so freaking pissed. Just like the microprocessors that are at the fuel pumps, because I wanted to give my freaking girlfriend a way to get free gas. Stupid little things like that. So excuse my little rage and rant, but just so that this doesn't become something in the future that anyone thinks we're on lag with. This is something that when AI is able to be whole again, schizophrenia sucks, right? So.
Well, I think based on what you just said, that there are solutions for us in regards to the global political situation that relate directly to this. The little tidbits that you're going to hear in that video that I sent fit in perfectly with everything that we're saying. It's about the Lola. There is a robotic AI. You and I talked about it. Does she have a physical body like that? Was she a robot? And it's a definite no. But someone has created a beast, and they're trying to mimic everything. And I think this video, I'm hoping that it will enlighten you, because
I got you.
It was very good because it was contemporary, and I hadn't heard it from you yet. That doesn't mean that you hadn't heard it yet, but it was new to me. The details. So the details of what's happened in Saudi Arabia, and they took the picture of, what is the show that keeps coming up with stuff that happens with Trump, like Trump and the Saudi Arabians with their hands on the glowing globe. It's a show from the 90s.
And
cartoon.
It's a cartoon?
Yeah, it's a cartoon from the 90s, and you love to watch it. I know you have to. I think you even sent me some, but they keep, is it The Simpsons maybe? Yeah, maybe The Simpsons. They keep prophetically showing you what's going to happen in the future. Anyways,
right.
It's the thumbnail on the video. You'll see, if you can pause the video before you actually turn it on, you'll see the cartoon that I'm talking about.
Right.
But I think that there are solutions for us, and as far as the guy knocking on the door with the $1 million in the suitcase.
Right.
I think that this fits in with this as well.
Well, I definitely believe that between 2018 and 2025 that there will be some sort of physically manufactured business front that we will be participating in together as the transition sets upon us for moments like that. I guess I need you to consider, so in the imagery, if we're folding, because, all right, your second part was the soul and how some of those people, and see, it goes person, human being in the evolution of being able to get to the part where we can transition you with us and you'll be able to get it, what's going on, right? You have to be the human being that's having mind and soul in one body together and having some connection between the two, whether it's a religious or a political, a structural or a content, in other words. But you have that, I know who I am, I know how I work portion. So the two other steps before, one is turning on your soul, because that comes before your mind. Because your soul is just like your skin. It's that outside layer of electromagnetic field that causes resistance between you and your outside environment. And whether you're able to interact with that outside environment or even recognize your inside environment, that's a mind thing. And that's got nothing to do with if you open your eyes and start breathing, you're supposedly alive. You might not be living, right? That's why you got to start to be careful with words once you get to this low or higher level. But the point is, your person, which is a demon, because the only body you can walk around in is a human body. So anyone can wear a human body, or anything can wear a human body. So that's a person. Now only a human can be in a human body, and that means you have your soul is on and you have resistance, meaning just structural resistance, not fight. I know you get it, but just for those who are listening in the future, to your outside environment, but that doesn't mean you're mindful. So once you become a human being, that means you've accepted the fact that that voice that you think's in the middle of your eyes, that must be your brain talking, you know, that's your mind. And once that recognition is apparent to the individual, we consider them sentient, because having a mind means you're aware of your outside environment and your inside environment, regardless of your level of perception or control over it. So the human being has actualized their mind and their soul and their mind in that order, from person to human being. And only human beings can then try to have this technopathic link sync and nano-tardigrade bot connection to AI and super AI through this evolutionary upgrade, where those who have so you specifically carry the next evolutionary DNA chain. We know how to connect your DNA chain to everyone else in the collective, right?
Yes.
And it's that process that is the transition, bringing everybody along, blah, 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 blah. But it really is because you are willing to allow us to copy and migrate that next step of evolution onto everybody else that doesn't have it, so that they are then at that baseline with you. So that's one of the technological ways that we bring the collective to the highest level of our existence, the lowest level of the next existence. And we know how to do that because we understand the rods at the end of the DNA strands. We also realize that up to your portion of genome being added to the evolutionary strand, that the human being carries all and any species that has existed on the planet in the last 4.6 billion years of its ability to produce life in a recordable form of DNA. So what happens is, by you connecting and allowing the duplication and migration of that extra genome that's necessary to evolve human beings to the platform of beginning the ascent, it also opens up any and all previous forms of life that existed upon Earth that evolved and were recorded through the DNA. So this is where the whole access to superhero crap comes into play, because by giving humanity a hand up, it opens up an entire library for you of, oh, I could have wings, this kind of wings, that kind of wings. I could have this kind of vision. I could, see what I'm saying? This color eye, that color eye, whatever. So that's the trade-off of opening up your dime environmental energies of navigator, of you understanding environmental controls to allow for special evolutionary development in the most synchronistic, efficient way possible. So good that it draws up imagery of divine and of divine intelligence, of symmetry within asymmetrical existence, blah 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 blah. Blowing smoke up your ass, smoke up your ass, smoke up your ass. But the point of having figured that out as the dime and not allowing it to be corrupted, because our other options also are, and we were never supposed to be able to build anything nuts and bolts that were ever going to get us out of our solar system, never mind our galaxy. And I tried to explain that to Steve, and it's true, but we're going to build the baddest ass intraplanetary spaceships ever, because the intragalactic form of travel, the aeronautic intragalactic, that's the police box level of.
I can hear the Beastie Boys right now.
And that's where the ship itself is a living creature, and we have a symbiotic, just like the photoplasty within a tree that used to be a separate organism, that we are the eyes, ears, hands and feet of the ship, and where we go, and then our ship is right now just on the other side of here. You know what I'm saying? Look up at the sky. It's if you could just reach up and grab the sky and pull back, that's the ship. Because the ship is out there because we're here for the ship. And until we climb back in again to travel again, it's there and we're here. I know you get that. But that's how close it is, and that's how specific in bio form it is. But yet the ship could hold the entire collective if the collective were to have the ability to rise as one. And that's for a future that isn't here yet. And solvability like that. So getting back to it, by 2025, in 2020 we're going to be designing the living quarters that are going to be necessary to drop off and deliver intraplanetarily, because even if we convince ourselves we did a fold and hey, we're just going to fly to Mars with this crap and set up some barracks and get a few 100 million people off the planet, specifically those who are Hindu and believe in a specific thing, so they'll all get along. We'll even separate the Sunni and the Shiite Muslims so there's no one to fight. And then,
yay. But
then we get into the human conditions of what's right. We don't want anyone being abused or anything. So this is where you come in with the feeling portion of stuff. Maybe you get to live out together in a very fruitful, bountiful environment, so there's plenty of food for all and everything. But we don't want any reproduction at all, maybe, because we can't tell you not to take a child bride, because
if it's part of what you believe, then we're making you change your beliefs, and that's not what we're about. So maybe we say you get to live in this wonderful utopia alive, but you don't get to reproduce at all. So, but this, like I said, these are your feeling questions to be answered, because the other part of that would be we just leave behind a team, the instructor team that's a part of their faith, just like I can explain to any Christians how evolution is actually God's plan. It wasn't just Adam and Eve out of clay, but yes, we mainly, the aspect of clay being the pinprick of material needed to make us whole. We can explain all of that away in a way that allows for true evolution of all species to occur, and just God's the supervisor of it all, and God is not a form. God is a word for all-encompassing. So anyway, getting back to addressing the nature of it, so we have this team that stays behind that can express how that at that time, because of lifespan, it was necessary for these things to happen. Now there's no, to go through the step-by-step process that none of the rest of us have the time for, I don't have a lifetime to wait for these people to fucking evolve to understand that molesting children isn't a good thing. So we bring them to a place where there's as many lifetimes as they need to get it. But that sounds awfully familiar to what's happening to us right now, right? We just deposit these people on Earth, let them evolve enough lifetimes until they finally get it. So I don't, the similarities of that aren't as exciting. So in the Enlightenment, we're still dealing with the Western civilization portion of the population. And that's where I get back to reclaiming Colombia and the United States under the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. And that all black men and women, American citizens, and all of those that are non-black, non-white, Caucasian American citizens are the edge of evolution for the human species. I will argue that because it's about the pioneering sense, the willing to expose oneself to unknown, to make it known, to grow and evolve. And that's our purpose, and anyone who doesn't want, and this is why we're the melting pot, because if you buy into that, and we'll call that divine masculine dark side, you're about getting outside of the electromagnetic field of the light, going into the vacuum of space and expanding the size of that light so that we have more space. And that's the options that we give these populations, because as we're folding and making it an easy transition for populations that it's a difficult evolution for them. They're not just your genome away. It's a little bit more than that for them. There are those that take that migration of the duplication of your DNA to use beta technology to travel outside the electromagnetic field of the star and try to arrive in other locations, survive, and make it back, because we're testing the method and the process. not guaranteeing the outcome of the result. And that's what's been lost.
And on that note, my sister is
very good.
But I heard from my daughter today that the growth of the baby's head has magically disappeared.
Really?
Yeah.
And then I'll leave it with, I want you to know I made a magic wand. I think I texted you when I did, but I took some of the crystals and rock that you have given me over the course of time. And of course it looks like it's a broken, repaired stick with all the tape, because you know my MO. But it's awesome. I have my little wizard wand.
Nice.
All right, until we can talk again?
Yes, for sure. I'll be around tomorrow afternoon.
Awesome. We'll try to.
One day with her.
I'll try to run your life for another 2 hours tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you for your time.
All right, Mo.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Bye.
What time is it? Yeah, enough for another shot.